This is Donald J. Trump, the 45th and 47th President of the United States. On August 11, 2025, along with several members of his cabinet, President Trump made an announcement in the White House press briefing room.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly.
Now, most people who live there or visit often will at least privately admit that violent crime and crime in general is and has been a massive problem in Washington, D.C. for decades, including MSNBC's Morning Joe Scarborough.
And I will tell you, I will walk night and day in New York City. I will not walk night and day in D.C. I know both cities. It's not that I'm afraid. It's like I just have a pretty good sense that where there's a more ominous threat and where there's not. And I want to read you a text from someone who I won't say their name, but they're. We'll just say that they're very liberal. He says, this may sound controversial, but I'm not totally opposed to Trump's National Guard move in D.C. I know he's doing it for politics, but crime remains rampant. I've had too many friends carjacked, shot at. None of us will walk more than 3 blocks after 8 p.m. 13-year-olds are committing many of these crimes. Quite a change from a decade ago when things were much calmer. Well, that actually sounds like the D.C. that I lived in when I lived a block behind the Supreme Court. And, you know, every 3 days, one of my neighbors was getting held up at gunpoint. I mean, there has been a crime problem in D.C.
Even NBC News' Martha Raddatz, who has lived in D.C. since the early 90s, can't pretend that it's safe.
The mayor suggested this week that the surge of federal police could be useful in fighting crime. And there is a crime problem in D.C. We all live here.
But instead of saying that maybe this is a good thing, the knee-jerk reaction from the Democrats is to attack Trump and the Republicans.
This is all an opportunity for Donald Trump to play dictator in Washington, D.C. Instead, he should be releasing, along with the House Republicans, the $1 billion, $1 billion in money that belongs to the people of D.C. that they're holding that D.C. could use to hire more police. The best way to help the police chief in Washington, D.C. is for President Trump and Republicans in Congress to give them the $1 billion in money that belongs to them so that they can hire those police rather than bringing in these federal agents.
However, according to reports, there are currently about 3,200 police officers with the Metropolitan Police Department. The budget allots for 4,000, so they are down by about 800 officers. I'm surprised Senator Margarita here didn't claim that the Republicans are defunding the police. However, it's not a budget issue, it's a staffing and recruiting problem, as officers are retiring at a rate faster than the department can replace them. Again, everyone knows that Washington, D.C. is a shithole. But the official stance of the Democrats is to be against anything and everything that Trump does.
If you have one message for Donald Trump and you were speaking to him right now, what would you say?
I would off D.C.
You don't stand a chance.
Back off.
Why don't you just go ahead and take your ass, go back to Florida.
We know how to govern in D.C. and we can secure our own streets.
Then why haven't you? They could secure their own streets, but they choose not to. And look, these are not your average Washingtonians being interviewed. They are invitees to a DNC-sponsored cookout. But instead of making cute little videos with left-wing activists, maybe they should be featuring actual residents who live in the bad parts of town and know what's what.
You know, I've been around here about 26, 27 years.
Is it dangerous here, do you think, or not?
I say it's Wild Wild West.
So despite the fact that people who live in Washington, D.C. know it's unsafe, and despite the fact that the police department is understaffed, and that the mayor admits that having extra law enforcement on the ground would be a positive, the media refuses to acknowledge that President Trump could do anything positive.
Trump declared a crime emergency in D.C., even though violent crime there is at a 30-year low.
It's a 30-year low for crime in D.C.
All of this happens when violent crime is at a 30-year low in Washington, D.C.
Crime is a problem in the city. Yes, it's
everywhere
dropping.
in America.
It's at a 30-year low here. It's down something like 28% over last year.
We know that according to police data and even the Department of Justice, D.C. is currently experiencing a 30-year low when it comes to violent crime.
Violent crime in the district is at a 30-year low, according to the Justice Department.
Violent crime is at a 30-year low in the district.
He says all of this is to clamp down on crime, but as D.C. officials work with federal officials, they do point out that violent crime has been at a 30-year low.
Violent crime in the city is actually at a 30-year low.
So where are they getting this violent crime is at a 30-year low statistic from? Well, that would be Matthew Graves, the now former U.S. Attorney of Washington, D.C. In January 2025, his office released a report claiming that violent crime is down. The categories to count towards this are homicide, sex abuse, assault with a dangerous weapon, and robbery. Burglary, according to the Metropolitan Police Department, does not fall under violent crime and doesn't count towards its total. So putting it on a list of violent offenses is stupid, so let's remove it. And don't worry, this year, there's only been 101 murders, and only 72% of carjackings have involved a firearm. You feel safer? Well, that's because violent crime is at a 30-year low.
There is no indication that this man is in favor of law-abiding behavior or public safety, but he is in favor of power. He is in favor of fascism. He is in favor of ending democracy. It's not normal to act like you can go into a city that is having tremendous progress, 30-year low in crime, and call it an emergency.
So the most useless district attorney in the country wants you to believe that President Trump surging police resources to a city is fascism and ending democracy. While at the same time, they're trying to paint a picture that Trump isn't allowed to because Washington, D.C. is somehow on the verge of becoming a utopian Wakanda.
Every statistic shows that Washington, D.C. has not been safer in the last 30 years.
No, it doesn't. Because when you look at the individual offenses, only assault with a dangerous weapon is the lowest in 30 years, supposedly.
Now we know the stats. We know that violent crime in the D.C. area is at a 30-year low.
The U.S. Attorney's Office said in January that violent crime in D.C. was at a 30-year low. Metro Police noting a 26% drop since last year.
We're talking about D.C. having a 30-year low in violent crime.
Crime is at a 30-year low in the District of Columbia.
We're seeing a 30-year low in terms of crime in D.C.
This is the President Trump, saying that there is a security problem here in D.C., but the reality is the crime statistics, the statistics that the police have put out, don't really back that up.
But what none of those news reports mention is that the accuracy of these numbers is currently being questioned. According to a July 18th report by NBC News 4 in Washington, D.C., a D.C. police commander was suspended and accused of changing crime statistics. The Metropolitan Police Department confirmed that Michael Pulliam was placed on paid administrative leave in mid-May. Pulliam, the former commander of the 3rd District that patrols Adams, Morgan, and Columbia Heights, was placed on leave with pay and told he was under investigation for questionable changes to crime data, according to 5 law enforcement sources familiar with the investigation. And according to Greg Pemberson, the chairman of the DC Police Union, this is a department-wide issue.
When management officials are directing officers to take reports for felony assault, or if they're going back into police databases and changing offenses to felony assault is not a category of crime that's listed on the department's daily crime stats.
So for clarity, the Metropolitan Police Department is allegedly downgrading offenses like assault with a dangerous weapon to felony assault. And felony assault is not a category listed on the MPD's district crime data, nor is felony assault something that needs to be reported to the FBI.
It's also not something that's a requirement of the FBI's Uniform Crime Reporting Program. So by changing criminal offenses from, for example, ADW bat or ADW gun to felony assault, that would avoid both the MPD and the FBI from reporting that as a Part 1 or a felony offense.
So again, the police union chairman is claiming that if someone is stabbed, instead of reporting it as assault with a dangerous weapon, it could instead be reported as felony assault. And we don't know how many felony assaults have been reported because they don't list it. But don't worry, guys, violent crime is down or something. So even though there are questions regarding the accuracy of crime stats in Washington, D.C., the media can't help but lie to their viewers.
The president declaring an emergency, saying crime in D.C. is spiraling out of control, even though the district's official figures showing violent crime recently hitting a 30-year low, down 26% since last year, numbers the president has baselessly called phony.
Baselessly? There's an investigation and credible indications that the numbers are being cooked to make the department look better. Not only that, there's evidence that this has been going on for years.
According to a sergeant turned whistleblower, the numbers weren't always to be trusted.
You can't always trust the numbers. I know you're shocked. And that whistleblower is Sergeant Charlotte Dosu of the Metropolitan Police Department. Here she is being interviewed by WUSA 9 News in March 2020.
So over time, I tried to voice my concerns internally. And because of the retaliation and because of the way they reacted towards me, they just didn't want to hear what I had to say. I felt like no one was listening, and I felt like I was being mistreated and I was being retaliated against.
Sergeant Dosu filed a lawsuit against the District of Columbia, claiming that MPD supervisors retaliated against her after she reported what she believed to be misconduct. The Washington Free Beacon obtained a transcript of a phone call from November 2019 between Sergeant Dosu and MPD Captain Sean Conboy. Dosu was concerned that an offense was being improperly downgraded. The following is a dramatization of that phone call.
Okay, so the complainant stated that she got into a physical altercation with her boyfriend. He strangled her. He ended up throwing her over the couch. She had scratches on her neck. Her shirt was ripped. And then he threw a knife in her direction close to her head. She moved out of the way. He has her keys and he stole her cell phone. That's a brief synopsis.
And what was the classification that was decided on the scene?
The watch commander decided to go with simple assault. That's incorrect.
Sergeant Dosu's reasoning was that the boyfriend attacked the girlfriend with a knife and that this should have been classified as assault with intent to commit with a dangerous weapon. But the captain asked the following.
Okay, how was the person assaulted with a knife?
He threw the knife with the intent for it to hit her. She moved out of the way.
Right. And what was the resulting injury of this knife assault?
The assault, when he strangled her, she had scratches on her neck.
Okay, so she was not harmed in any way by the knife?
No, she got out of the way.
But the knife never made contact with the complainant.
'Cause she moved out of the way, right.
But regardless of how, she was unharmed. No injury was caused by the knife being thrown at her.
Exactly.
Okay, I don't see any issues with the current classification.
So Captain Conboy's reasoning was, yes, a knife was used in the assault, but since the victim wasn't actually hurt by the knife, it wasn't an assault with a knife. By that logic, you could say, sure, the suspect fired his weapon, but the victim wasn't hit with a bullet, so it wasn't assault with a deadly weapon. With that said, are we honestly supposed to believe that assault with a dangerous weapon offenses are at a 30-year low? Press X for doubt. And my prediction? There's going to be a federal investigation into the crime stats. And when it's officially proven that the higher-ups have been juking the stats, well, I hope you have enough money for the Trump was right jar. Anyway, that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time, if there is next time.